My name is Tony Hirst, and I play, as many others do, many characters in Punch. Primarily, I play David Hodgkinson, who's the dad of James, the victim of the punch. I play Derek, who's Jacob's lecturer at college, and one of the few positive male role models in Jacob's life. I play a fictional character who's based on those other people. David and Derek are real. I play a guy called Tony, who's a kind of ringleader in the gang on the Meadows estate. I also play Raf's dad, who is a fictional character, Raf is Jacob's best mate whilst he's kicking around on the Meadows and getting up to no good. David, who's the main character that I play, is a real person, and I was talking to him this morning. I check in with him most kind of weeks, either by text or by phone, and we've got to know the real David, the real Joan, obviously the real Jacob and the real Nicola who are in the play. They're committed to the play as much as we are, probably even more, because it means a great deal to them in terms of the memory of their son James living on, and a positive thing coming out of it in order for them to campaign and spread the message as much as possible. So we're in contact with them, and I was cautious about playing a real person on the grounds that it wasn't to be an impression or an impersonation of them, but there's also, you need a respect of who they are and what they've been through and what you're revealing of them. There's an authenticity there throughout the cast and throughout the portrayal of all the characters, and I think a lot of the audience response it's overwhelming, and one of the things that they all identify is how authentic it is, and there's not a lot of sentiment in the play, there's a lot of emotion, but it's very, very honest, and it's never ever about us, the 6 actors who perform it. It's always about the real protagonists. The difference, if it was a completely fictional character, as opposed to playing a real character, then I'm not sure the actor's process is any different. You're just able to access a much richer source of research, whether that's just through talking to the people involved, watching them. It got to the point that the real Joan and David, we found out were going to come to the first ever night of Punch at Nottingham Playhouse, which was still in preview. And we were all in the cast a bit alarmed that they knew about the play. They'd worked with James Graham, the writer, quite a bit, and they'd been in contact with us throughout the rehearsal process via Zoom, and we'd met Joan a couple of times, but they hadn't seen the play, and we were concerned that they were going to sit in an auditorium with 750 people watching this. And there's a scene in the play that's very emotional or emotionally charged and revealing and intimate about their son's life that they tragically lost. And me and Julie are doing the scene as Joan and David. And the real Joan and David are 7 foot away there. And I remember having a line which is an almost verbatim line from David that he said to James, his son. And I remember thinking, knowing that the line was coming up, thinking, who the hell am I to deliver that line? And what a fraud I was. And then I thought, actually, that is my job as an actor. I have to interpret it, and I have to make a choice as to how I think David would say the line. So I better just make sure that it's the right choice, and it's an honest choice from my point of view, that it's not about my emotion, it's about reflecting David at that point. It kind of calibrated us to go, actually, this really isn't about us, because, you know, a lot of people think acting is feeling, and then you have to, and it's not. That's just indulgence. So it was good that we were able to locate those emotions. I spoke to the real David this morning, and he said something remarkable to me after that first show. I went and saw him, obviously, and said, how did you find it? And he said, yeah, I was worried before it started. And I said, what were you worried about? He said, I was worried that the audience would think, why did you do that? And I went, wow. I said, I think you'll find the audience think, how did you do that? it hadn't occurred to him, which shows the caliber of the man that he is, that the audience just think, how? And I think that every night. I don't know how they did what they did and how they continue to do what they do. And because it's a true story, you can't back away from what you see. You have to make sense of it, even if you're in conflict with it, or you think, why would you do that? Or how would you do that? I did know Jacob's story. I'd heard the podcast, and that led me to read the book. And then I met the people at Nottingham Playhouse and was inspired by their commitment to it. And Adam Penford, the director, his commitment to it and his view of the play. There wasn't a script at that point. James Graham spinning plates. And James Graham absolutely gets to the heart and soul of many individuals in this play. But what he does, which is unique and remarkable, is that he explodes the whole thing into such a bigger picture that it's not just about the individual and the choices they make. It's all the other external forces that impact and influence those choices. And he does it in such a way that's entertaining, funny, irreverent, moving. And there are aspects to it that you don't ever consider. There were huge external forces at play for Jacob. The lack of services available to him, the absolutely chronic broken criminal justice system, even architecture that has an impact on his behaviour. You know, he talks about class in the play, the aspirational working class, the forces at play on there, of architecture, which you think is, what has that got to do with this, you know, this event, this punch? But it's absolutely intrinsic. They're all symbiotic, they're all linked. And we choose, or we're ignorant of those things often, that bigger picture. And he requires us to look at the bigger picture. He presents it to us, and we have to make sense of it. Potholes, not people. I think to perform it is frenetic and it is high energy, especially in the first act, in the first half. But because there's such drive and structure and rhythm, it's one of those things that you have to commit to it. And if you stop or ease, you're going to get left behind. So everyone just kind of goes. It's not frantic. It's all planned and choreographed. But James Graham he only lets the tempo settle when he wants it to settle, in order for you to listen in a different way, or to receive in a different way, or watch in a different way. A lot of people ask us, oh, how do you feel every night? How do you decompress? I've never ever once had a problem, because, like I've always said, it's never about us. It's always about the real people involved, and their struggle and loss will always be greater than anything that we happen to feel or react to. It's a very common story in terms of what happens, and it's something that we often overlook. But I think this play makes you engage and question and try and make sense of what happened. And it makes me question myself and my behaviours and my value systems. It's a story about ordinary working class people. If these were well off, not even rich, but if these were well off people or privileged people, they would have access to a different criminal justice system than the majority of us would. So this is absolutely a play about class. It's populated by characters who aren't normally on our stage, portrayed on our stage, and physically doing it on our stage. And I'm really proud of that. And it's vital that everybody sees it, because too many judgments are made these days. It's a very polarised world. The theatre world is becoming more polarised, and people of class are sidelined in that. There's also huge hope in the play, which fascinates me every night, that in all of this loss and horror and misfortune for many, there's huge hope. And I find that, again, in this day and age, we could all do with a bit of hope. Everyone should see it, because it's a human story. that I think something lies at the centre of the protagonists in the play, and I include Jacob, Joan and David in that, that is truly remarkable from very ordinary circumstances. And they teach us all how I think compassion and understanding and forgiveness can lead to far greater things than opposing them.